Awesome, awesome. Welcome to the Unscathed Life podcast. I am super excited to have you here with me, as I always am every week. But I am even more excited today. I've got a fantastic guest with me today. Her name is Aba Cato Andah. I'll let her talk a little bit about herself right now and just introduce herself. But I just want to say a couple of things about her, which has just endeared me to her and which makes me, I just sense that it's going to be a great conversation. So Aba is a Christian psychotherapist. Look at that. Are you guys feeling that? Christian psychotherapist, people may not necessarily think she makes, but there we have it. And she's also the founder of Chrysalis Counselling and Coaching, a private counseling practice. Aba's career and background includes science research, teaching, and over a decade as a sales and marketing executive with a multinational pharmaceutical company. Welcome, Aba.
Thank you, Tonbra. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Super exciting to have you. Can you tell my listeners a little bit more about you? I know there is just so much to be heard, but I want to just tell my listeners in your own words about you.
Right. So who is Aba? Well, I'm a fabulous child of God. I'll say that.
Ooh, love that.
I am a wife. I am a mother. I'm actually a mother-in-law as well. And I'm a sister, an aunt, and I'm a great friend. That is who I am. In terms of what my passions are, I think, you read that I've done science research. I spent some time teaching, and I spent some time working for GlaxoSmithKline Pharmaceuticals, actually in England and in America.
Oh, really? You worked in England as well?
I did, yes. I've lived in London. We lived in Northolt, and this is over 20 years ago.
No way!
I worked in Stockley Park. Yes, I worked in Stockley Park, and then we also lived in Peterborough. I lived in Cambridge. And then in the year before we moved away from the UK to the US, I lived in Hexham, which is between Newcastle, Northumberland, and Carlisle.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Amazing! I didn't realize that you lived in London earlier.
I did. I lived in the UK for the first 5 years of our marriage. Yes, and so it's going on. What I guess it's over probably about 25 years ago. Yep.
Oh wow! Yep. Amazing. And you're based in Canada now, aren't you?
No, I actually live in sunny Florida, in the US. So listen, let me just tell you, I live in Davenport, Florida, which is about 25 minutes from Disney.
Yes.
So you know what? If you and the girls are ever coming to Disney,
I remember you saying.
Let me just tell you, prior to COVID, we've had, through the year, we have so many, all of a sudden people loved us so much after we moved to Florida. Now, is it love or is it Disney? I don't know. All I know is that.
That was like, I'm just going to be around.
The nickname for our home became Hotel Andah.
Oh my goodness!
In the summertime, I used to have to keep a timetable. No. This is the blackout period and so on, because we live in just outside Orlando, Florida.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing! It's super exciting to hear that. Definitely, You've given me ideas for what to do once this whole COVID is over.
Once this COVID is over, Orlando, Florida is the place. And actually, there's lots of British people that's come here as well. So all through the year, we have a lot of British visitors and so on. So yeah,
absolutely. So Aba, I know that we share a passion, which is around seeing women. Not necessarily. I don't know if yours is, but me, I know my core passion really is around, seeing women, and what this show is about. It's really seeing. I call it the intentional manifestation of your higher self, regardless of your circumstance. I am totally drawn to seeing women, live free from the negative impact of the experiences that they've had. And that's what I call, that's why I coined the phrase living unscathed. And I know that this is something that is close to your heart. So what's interesting for me is to kind of hear your own story. How did you kind of delve? How did you get into that sort of line of work?
Well, so as a therapist, it's interesting. There's some people call us wounded healers. And I think that the truth is that for therapists, for coaches, anybody who's been through something, I truly believe it's not a cliche. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But what it does do, it increases a certain compassion and empathy for people who suffer. And so we are warriors, is what we are. We are warriors. And so I totally, also go with this desire that you have. I call it, I really love people, and I love sharing information that will make people's lives better. And I think honestly, for me, it even comes down to my birth order. I'm the firstborn of a firstborn. I was the first grandchild.
Wow! Firstborn of the firstborn, and you're
the grandchild. There were expectations, but then they went as cousins who were close to me or no older siblings to show me the ropes. So I remember wondering, how is this done? How is this done? And so from an early age, with my younger siblings, with my cousins and so on, I developed a passion for, I don't want you to necessarily make a mistake I did or fall on your face the way I did. I know that God was actually birthing something,
Oh, wow. I absolutely love that. So I like the fact that you talk about your wounded, therapists, they kind of call them wounded healers.
Healers.
I think that is so powerful.
Exactly. And that is why our story is so powerful, because the truth is that, unfortunately, we are addicted to perfection. And of course, social media doesn't help, because social media projects images. How many trials will somebody take a picture before they post the perfect one on social media? Beautiful families. And I'm not saying families aren't beautiful, but we get snapshots. And for those whose life, their expectations are very different from their reality, they see some of these images and so on and think, wow, but what happened to me?
What happened to me?
And I'm like, no, I think actually when we share our story, we are relatable. There's a power in storytelling.
I love that.
There is a power in storytelling. In fact, in therapy, there's a whole discipline of therapy called narrative therapy. And it understands that actually when you share a story, see, if I sit and I say, okay, Tombra, 1, 2, 3, love God, live right, live pure. Okay, you receive it, but hey, it came as factual and it didn't really enter your soul. But if I share my story of what I went through, first of all, you're engaged in the story. You're identifying with yourself, seeing yourself reflected in the
reflected
story.
within the story as well.
And actually, it's shown that it brings your psychological defenses down. And then when the lessons come, you are not, defensive in any way, and then you are receiving the messages. And that is why, storytelling in its various forms is
so powerful. And you remember it. Those images, those picture images, they stay in your mind.
You might be even surprised. Even, I know you have said to me about, the power of even live videos. It could be a smile. It could be a look in your eye that somebody might just see, and even that even, you know what? If she smiled today, I'll smile today. So so there's a power in just being very present, being vulnerable. Brené Brown, who I love, she talks about the power of vulnerability, and especially for many of us from our background in Africa, we weren't raised to embrace vulnerability.
Not at all.
Our parents, hey, if you had food on the table and clothes on your back, what are you
That was it. You are fine. Come on.
What do you mean emotional? Come on, stop that nonsense.
I know, and this is why I was just super keen to have you on the show, just to touch on some of those. I don't know, why is there such a stigma around therapy and just mental health generally from that whole from the African continent, really? I know that it is over here as well in the Western world, but definitely not as much as it is in Africa. What would you say?
Well, Tombra, I think that misinformation is probably the main culprit. And I know for myself, and probably for you too, if you were to tell me mental, all right, the image that comes to my mind is the
Is
quote
somebody
unquote the madman.
mad?
Now
Yes.
in Ghana, which is where I'm from, he'll typically be walking around clothes unkempt and shaven, probably if not naked, clothes very, very disheveled and dirty, talking to himself, looking scary. That is our association with the word mental. And there's also misconceptions. If you have anything to do with mental illness, then it's about possession. Maybe you're a witch. Maybe there's a devil. And so therefore we separate ourselves from that. And we think, okay, perhaps it's about just prayer, But I'm here to say, you know what? Man, human beings, we are tripartite beings. Right? We are spirit, we have a soul, and we live in a body. And therefore, health has to be total health, spiritual health, physical health, and then your soul, which is your mind and your intellect and your emotions. All right, that has to be healthy as well. And I see it as like a three-legged stool. If any of the legs is cut short, well, you know what? The stool cannot stand. And so it's about also educating people to know that, you know what, our mental health, or certainly mental illness, if that's what's happening, is a health condition. It's a health condition. I'm not saying let's not pray, let's not intercede, but I'm saying it's a health condition. And so if you had asthma, you would go to the doctors, get an inhaler. If you had high blood pressure and you need, they would say, yes, change your lifestyle, maybe eat less fried foods and so on. But at some point they may say, you know what, take an antihypertensive medicine. And in fact, you have to increase the dose. It is no different for somebody who suffers from depression or anxiety. And we are in denial about it because, Tombra, listen, the data as it stands, and I actually think it's even worse in this past 2020, is that
of course it's been
1 in 4 people in the course of our lifetimes are affected by a mental disorder. 1 in 4 people.
No way, that's staggering.
1 in 4 people. That means
a
that
staggering
if I
statistic.
experienced a mental illness, then I've had a close loved one experience a mental illness. Depression is a mental illness. Now, of course, there's mental health and then there's mental illness, which I'll talk about in a second.
Okay.
But it's important to understand that we are affected. And certainly this past year, even if you felt you weren't affected, for sure you knew somebody who suffered, if not you yourself.
So that's the thing. A lot of people, what does that look like? I'm just trying to think about going back in Africa now, where no one would go and see a therapist or would ever be concerned about, their general mental health. How is that mental, how is that manifesting? How does that manifest? I think I kind of have an idea, but it would be good to get it from from a professional, because you're saying, okay, like 2020 now, we've had a really, really hard year. It's been hard on all of us. But at what point is there a line between knowing you are fine and you are not, or is it assumed that, because it was so hard, everybody was not fine?
Well, it's interesting. If I throw, I don't know, some big weight falls on different people, depending on how strong they are, it will affect them differently. Somebody may be able to catch whatever the load is and hey, no sweats. For somebody, it may crush them and they may break their leg and so on.
Okay, like that.
For many years, we have many factors that build resilience. I mean, that's true. The truth is that we have, for us in our communities, we've had pastoral counseling. We have a community of people who may encourage us and so on. All those things help. The work we do as coaches, all of that helps. But the reality is that we have also missed out on the fact that, yes, depression does exist. And it's important to even understand how underlying depression can affect relationships, can affect performance at work, performance at school, and so on.
Okay.
And I think that is the bit we need to add to the mix.
Okay. So it manifests in different ways, in different sort of different spheres of activities in life.
Well, that's the thing. So this 2020 happened, people lost their jobs, people lost their loved ones, people were stuck at home, people in difficult marriages really went through a hard time because they
Exacerbated it.
were
Yeah.
right in difficult situations, and it affected for most of us our mental health. So what is mental health? Well, it's a certain sense of wellness and the ability to cope with the demands of life. You know, if you're mentally healthy, you feel like you are energetic, you feel like you are, performing well, be it at work, at school, you have, healthy relationships. And so these are all pillars of mental health. Now, something happens in life because all of us go through stress. All of us have sad days, and it may take you out for a few days, maybe even a week and whatnot. And you may find that maybe on a particular week where you were so busy, for example, any of us at home as wives, as mothers, as professionals, man, this week was so busy, I couldn't even cook. Or see, we're down to our last pair of socks and underwear. I couldn't do my laundry. So these may be situations where, all right, you know what, for this period of time, your mental health was compromised. But the thing about mental health is that if you don't put in things in your life to pump it back up again, then mental health can degrade to a point where it becomes a mental illness. And mental illness,
that is it. That is
disorder of mental health. So mental illness then becomes a clinical depression.
Oh, right? Got it.
Right. So therefore, when it comes to, for example, clinical depression, there's a number of symptoms, right? There's about 9. There's a big, it looks like a Bible, a big book. It's called the Diagnostic Manual of Mental Disorders. And when it comes to depression, there's about 9 different symptoms. If an individual is suffering from at least 5 of them for about 2 or 3 weeks and counting, then there's a chance that the person has clinical depression. And then we need to decide what to do about it. So at any point in time, you could be feeling really sad. And sometimes sadness can be because of a situational event. Maybe somebody you loved passed away. Maybe somebody you loved lost a job. Maybe you lost a contract and you're so disappointed that maybe the next 2 or 3 days is hard to be motivated to move on with your life and so on. But, and we use the terms loosely. Oh, I'm so depressed. Oh, I'm so anxious. Oh, I have OCD. We use these, terms of mental illness very loosely. But the truth is that to diagnose them, there's a certain number of symptoms a person has to have, and it has to be all day, every day for a minimum period of time. Then you are in the realm of mental illness. Yes.
Oh, wow. Yes, that is super powerful. So what I'm hearing you say, really, just for the benefit of my listeners, is that it almost feels like it's what you said, the difference between mental health and mental illness for me was just fantastic in terms of it. I must say it like a graph. It's like you've got the flat line here, and when you're up there, as long as you don't dip for too long, is that what you're saying? As long as you don't dip for too long.
It's like a continuum. It's like a continuum. So for example, if let's say you choose to take on too much in your schedule,
the
point where you are stressed. Okay. Initially, it's, my mental health is compromised because I've been going for 2 months and not sleeping well. I've been sleeping but if you keep going and don't make changes to your schedule, then at some point it will run you to the ground.
Got you.
So that is that relationship, and we use the terms interchangeably. The fact though is that mental illness is a diagnosable disorder of mental health. It's a diagnosis. Like depression, right? Like anxiety, like things like obsessive compulsive disorder or autism or attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder. All of these, and it's a whole spectrum. It's a whole spectrum of disorders. Now, when you have it, doesn't mean you are some scary failure or a witch. No, it does not. It does not.
I think it is super important that you say what you just said again. Just to, when you have it, I want you to say it loud and clear because somebody needs to hear this.
Mental illnesses are just a wide umbrella of different disorders. 1 in 4 of us in the course of our lifetimes will be affected by it. So if a person is diagnosed with a mental disorder, does it mean they're a failure or a non-effective Christian or witch or possessed by the devil? No, it does not. It just means that you have a health situation that must be addressed.
As you would if you had like a normal health situation, you need to go and say, Dr. Asthma or this thing.
In the same way, if you had a heart problem, you would still pray, Lord, heal me. But you take your medicine, you would do your exercise. You would drink lots of water. Same thing. If you have depression, they found that, for example, diets, eating wholesome, nutritious food.
That's what you need to do.
Exercise, they've measured depression levels before and then 30 minutes after a vigorous walk. That can help, depression levels. So it's not rocket science. It's not some crazy spiritual thing. No more than illness. Normalize it. We have to accept it. And one thing I love, there's a pastor who I love. His name is Rick Warren, and he wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yes.
And I really see him as just a pioneer, at least for me, when that book came out. And then a few years ago, he suffered the loss of his son by suicide because of a mental illness. His son had bipolar disorder. Doesn't mean Rick wasn't a good father or a good pastor. No, it just means the son succumbed unfortunately, to the effects of mental illness. And so Rick has done a fantastic job now putting together a mental health packet, now educating churches. Listen, we can no longer say these are two separate things. You need to understand that intersection between mental illness. Yes, and you have a mental illness doesn't mean you're not a strong Christian. It does not mean that.
I know, and this is the thing.
Yes, and then the stigma is also a whole other issue in itself. So because it's a stigma, I'm hiding what I'm feeling and feeling worse about myself.
I know, and this is the thing why I just think therapy is almost like a taboo word. So what I want to understand now, and for the benefit of the people who really, really need to hear this, is I know you've kind of said it, but I want you to say, like, how important is it, to seek help like therapy, particularly when you're sort of like in the early stages of having compromised mental health?
Yeah.
What would you speak to that, please?
So Tombra, I actually think therapy gets a bad rap. Therapy is something you do for real. Think of it as an emotional massage. It gets a bad rap, and it does.
It's
an enjoyable thing, because here's the thing: when you're going through something, all right, your loved ones, you tell them, and they may not even truly, first of all, will not be trained to understand all the factors that may come into why you're feeling the way you are feeling, which could be a combination of trauma, of things that happened in your childhood, of maybe underlying depression, of present situational things, and so first of all, loved ones who are not trained in these things will not understand the intersection of how all of these things affect us. But also, take a look at something, and I know those who listen to the podcast can't see, but I'm holding this, right?
And there's a ring binder, so you're holding a book.
And I'm holding a book, and I'm holding it right close to my face. Tombra, you think I can read what I'm?
No, you can't. You can't read it.
If I hold it away from myself,
can
I read it then?
Yes, you can.
You see, in the same way, talking to somebody who doesn't know you, who doesn't have preconceived notions about you, who is able to not assume they understand what you are thinking or feeling, but they're giving sacred space where they are listening, because there's a power, there's a magic that comes with listening, right?
I once heard someone say that you when you're inside the box, you can't read your own label.
Exactly. But then the person is also trained in understanding mental disorders. For example, I'll tell you, I've had, for example, a couple come in, and the husband is complaining that the wife is lazy and she won't get out of bed and so on. Now, on one level, somebody who doesn't understand mental illness may say, well, stop being lazy. The Bible says a wife should rise early and cook for her husband. But it takes a trained professional, perhaps, or at least somebody who understands the symptoms of depression to understand, wow, lady, I'm seeing that there's also severe depression going on. That must be addressed first. Because when there's mental illness going on, right, you can talk. The person doesn't even have what it takes at that point.
What it takes at that point to be able to make a change.
Life, yes.
They've lost that whole the coping mechanism to be able to deal with the things that they're dealing with. So it's all just going over their heads. Oh, wow,
Absolutely.
That's so powerful. Oh, love that. Wow, you're blessing us. You're blessing us.
Amen.
So I want to talk about, people that have had trauma, because I'll have some people listening. So as you know, the sort of listeners that I have are people possibly who have had, things that they've experienced in their life. And there may be a few of them who have, I think, what, I'm okay. I have dealt with my life. I'm all right. I don't know why. I've never seen anybody, but I don't think there's anything wrong with me. I'm all right. I mean, is there, I know there's no rule of thumb around these things. As you say, it's like if you throw a block from the surface, it depends on your weight, depending on who it will crush. Yes. But is there something to say that around people who have had trauma, considerable trauma in their life, around seeking help? I'll leave you to answer that. So I've just thrown that question, but is there a rule of thumb that says you must seek help? Or how do you know that you're doing okay? Maybe you're not. How would you answer that?
I think I would answer it by saying, whether you have trauma, we all have childhood issues.
I love that. We have childhood issues.
We all have our baggage, because you know what? We are imperfect people who were born imperfect people who lived and grew up in an imperfect world, and we have imperfect relationships. Doesn't mean we're not awesome. It doesn't mean that, but it means we carry baggage.
We're carrying baggage, things that we've learned over time, and then we pass that along.
Exactly.
That is
so listen, if you realize that there's something up with your relationships.
So those are the sort of telltale signs, the indicators.
Telltale sign, exactly.
Got it.
Or you find yourself getting overwhelmed with life, then go in and talk to someone. Is there, in fact, when you say rule of thumb, it almost means to me, oh no, don't go to the hospital unless you are really, really sick. I'm like,
go there.
No, because there's always something. I'm telling you, I've been a therapist for 10 years, and of course, the nature of my job is you want to make people feel well enough to not have to keep coming to see you. At the same time, I have people, sometimes I won't see them for a year or two and they'll call me back. It's an amazing thing. Sometimes for a top up, sometimes because they just want to come and talk about something to do with wellness. So you know what? Therapy is actually not just something that is based on some morbidity. Sometimes a conversation will just free you. A conversation will just free you, and it helps to have a different perspective.
I love that. So how would you say then therapy differs from coaching?
So I think that there's a lot of intersection.
Yes.
There's a lot of intersection. I think that when I do therapy, then I'm assessing and looking out for mental disorders or that may impact the person's performance. I think that where there's a lot of intersection between therapy and coaching is that I also do a lot of work on getting people to change certain mindsets. That's where there's intersection. We teach principles of behavior. So there's a lot of intersections, more intersections than not. And actually, I would even encourage coaches, talk to a therapist, get a little sheet where you can give to a client of yours and get a sense. There's a thing.
Get a sense.
Okay, there's something going on? They're easy sheets I can give you that they're not proper diagnosis, but they're indications of the fact that, okay, this needs to be looked at more. And then,
I like that.
Go see your doctor and get a proper diagnosis.
Wow, that is so good. That is so good. I like that because you don't want to give improper advice as a coach. You don't want to, step out of line and then be
exactly. Now, in terms of therapy itself, there's many different modes of therapy. So probably, and maybe that's what gives us the bad rap. Maybe people are more familiar with what Freud did. You lay the patient on the couch and then so talk to me. What is going in through your head? Your dream. And then it's like you're a crazy person lying there. You know, but there's so many other modes. One I use a lot is called cognitive behavior therapy, which really understands that your thoughts affect how you feel and will affect your behavior. Every thought affects how you feel and will affect your behavior. And human beings, we feel first. So therefore, in my sessions, I train people to identify how are you feeling. You know, and you tell me, and you train to tell me at least 4 different things you are feeling, and they may be even conflicting. Now, because your thoughts affect your feelings, now I train you to say, now let's go back and say what thoughts, what events are going on in your life that caused you to feel this way. See, because your feeling is always valid. And that's what I should tell you. That's why we must allow ourselves to get in touch with what we are feeling, because our feelings are an indicator of what's going on in our heads, of what's going on in our lives. You know, Oprah made $1 billion because she understood that human beings, we want our feelings to be validated. So when she these talk shows and said, here's a topic today, this person suffered from this and this person too, and then people are talking and they're saying, I'm not alone in my experience.
Yes.
Your feeling is always valid. Now the thoughts behind it may not be valid, and that's where we do a lot of the therapy. So for example, I give a story of how my colleague came to visit one day. She has 3 sons. Now the sons, again, they came to Florida. They came to Florida. So we're sitting downstairs, and the 3 boys, at the time, they were 12, 9, and 3. And they were upstairs playing on my son's PlayStation, playing a basketball game. Now, only 2 people could play that game. So in actual fact, the 12 and the 9-year-old were playing the game, but the 3-year-old, they gave him one of the controls, but it wasn't actually connected to the system. So the 3-year-old, he sat there thinking he was playing,
but
so he's pressing things and seeing, you know, things
moving, but
now,
he's not actually playing.
At the end of the game, the oldest brother won, which meant the youngest brother thought he had lost. Now we were sitting downstairs chatting. Then we heard the baby crying so hard, we ran upstairs. KJ, what's wrong? What's wrong? He said, I lost the game. So my question is, why was KJ crying, Tonbra?
Wow.
Why was he crying?
Because he thought he lost the game.
Right. Did he actually lose the game?
He didn't.
Because he wasn't playing, correct?
He wasn't playing.
Was his feeling of sadness real?
It was real.
Right. So our feelings are always valid. That's what I teach in therapy. Understand it, acknowledge it, but then go back and figure out, since your feelings stem from your thoughts, figure out what thoughts gave assumptions, memories, experiences gave rise to this feeling. If we can change the thoughts, the feeling will change.
And what you're saying is so powerful because it cuts across everything.
Across every discipline.
Everything.
The word of God says it. Biology
everything.
says it. Everything.
Even as a parent, I can already see how that makes sense. Absolutely. If my daughter comes and she's saying, "Oh, mommy, this," and I'm thinking, what is this? It's not just a little paper cut. Why are you doing like that?
Yes.
Her feeling is valid.
Her feeling is valid, and even as parents, and that's why sometimes as parents, right, we are so quick to discipline the child, because maybe they did something naughty, but perhaps they were sad because of something else. We need to get to the child's feeling, understand what your child is feeling, and then say, but you know what, you did this naughty thing, here's your consequence. We need to understand both of that in all our relationships. Seek first to understand. In marriage, I'm telling you, it's a game changer. If we
first to understand.
If we truly allow ourselves to listen to our spouses, to truly listen, what we do tend to do, and trust me, I've been married for 25 years with my husband for 31 years. So I've been made this mistake over and over and over again. I'm listening to only form my defense and come back at you with a matter.
You're listening to answer.
I'm listening to respond so I can win the argument. But if we seek to understand and validate, right, we would get along so much better in life.
Oh my gosh. If you said nothing else today, you have said it all. That is so good, because I can already see, because if you would listen to really understand, it's not what the person said, it's why. What is behind what they said.
Exactly. So to be honest with you, even that kind of training, I guess it's called emotional intelligence. We all need it. And actually studies have shown, for most of us, where we came from, it's intellectual intelligence. Well, guess what? One study says there's 9 different types of intelligence. One of them being emotional intelligence, determinant of success, emotional intelligence. And that's why you may have seen, all of us have people you went to school with, and the ones who maybe were the most clever were not necessarily the ones who became most successful in life later on. It may have been somebody who was more average, but you know what? Maybe that person was more street smart, knew how to deal with people,
Oh, wow.
knew how to get along, so on and so forth. And so therapy is just a very diverse but beautiful process where you just get to, what is better than just having somebody sit with you non-judgmentally to listen to you and offer you a different perspective. I think it was, I think some Greek philosopher, it may have been Socrates, said the unexamined life is not worth living.
Wow.
And therapy
must always
allows you to be, at least get into that process of examining your life.
I am an advocate for therapy. I just think that it is fantastic. I did couples therapy. I don't know what it's called, and it's worked wonders for our marriage. Like literally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because here's the thing. So many of us, marriage is arguably, in fact, not even arguably, there's no question. It is probably the most important institution we will enter into in our lives. For every job we do, we get training. And yet, how many of us are trained adequately, to have healthy marriages? First of all, we don't all come from backgrounds where we experience healthy marriages. If you don't begin to get a different perspective, you're going to bring the same behaviors that you right into your situation. So absolutely, therapy just needs you take it's like a retreat. You take a step away from everyday living and just examine and read again.
And just to say though, a lot of, let me kind of speak for the people who are on the other side. A lot of times people feel that therapy is almost like a waste of time. That's the truth. For the people who I know who have never done therapy, they're like, oh, I sit on a couch and they just listen, and next thing you pay them and they go, please, what are they actually doing? Because they can't really, they don't stay enough a lot of times to see that big picture, the differences. So I think I want you to speak to, some of those, I don't know, I'm stuck for words today. I want you to speak a little bit to it's not the length of time, because I know it's not really a function of time, but what you should be seeing when you're with a good therapist.
Well, I think with a good therapist, you first of all set goals, right? You will tell them why you are here. I have an intake form and I ask specifically, why do you want to seek therapy?
Okay.
The reality though is that as we go along, we may identify more goals.
Okay.
And the truth too is that, listen, therapy is an investment.
Okay.
So sometimes we work on one thing and then the person may decide to take a break and then come back and try and pick up something else. Or they may work on something, try it out, live this new lifestyle for a while, and then come back to just talk about how they fared, with this new mindset and so on. So yes, I think with a good therapist, you should see improvement. With a good therapist, you should feel comfortable. With a good therapist, you should feel like you can open up and share, what's going on in you. And I want to say that one thing that sets therapists apart is we're actually governed by very strict, at least in America, very strict guidelines, ethical guidelines of behavior. One of them being confidentiality.
Okay.
So I want to encourage anybody who is thinking about going to see a therapist. Trust me, I can't even share that I know this person. And so typically, I don't live in a big town. I tell people, listen, if I see you in the grocery store, as for me, I'll just walk past you. Some people like to hug me. Some people don't want anybody to know they know that's therapy woman. Whatever, if you hug me, I'll hug you back. Right? But confidentiality, I think, is important. And of course, it should be somebody you feel like you can open up to. It's a collaborative partnership with your therapist. I think that also it's important to have somebody who is culturally competent, because we are, we
have our certain nuances.
Now, does it mean you always have to find an African therapist? Not necessarily, but at least somebody who is open enough to understand have nuances of cultural things that come up. What is interesting though, Tombra, and is that research has shown, you're going to laugh, that the people who tend to do well in therapy are young, beautiful, and educated.
What does beauty have to do with it?
I don't know, but if somebody is young and educated and you don't want to go to therapy, now then you're not beautiful. That's what it is.
Oh my goodness, that is too funny.
I think there's something about maybe beautiful people have different relationships, and so are used to interacting more with people. I don't know, but they just found it to be true. It was a finding.
Oh wow, that's an interesting.
And I think it's definitely one where generationally, certainly my generation, I think I'm a half generation, ahead of you.
Yeah.
But certainly my generation, your generation, they are more open. Now our parents probably less so.
Yeah.
And so it's generational, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, you said so many things today that have just blown me away. And I think the feelings are always valid. I will always remember that.
Your feelings are always valid, and which is why it's important to journal. Because,
please talk about journaling.
Because, here's the thing. You cannot overcome that which you have not identified. Period. And so understanding how you are feeling and journaling is a great way to get it all out. What I find when I journal is I can get all my stuff out, and then the Holy Spirit takes over, and then I begin to write, Lord, I know you are faithful. I know you are on my side. I know you'll take care of me. Because the truth is that we don't like to deal with our feelings, but feelings are an indicator, and feelings are not bad feelings are not meant to stay inside of you. And that's why actually people who harbor, who internalize, right? What happens is that they suffer a lot from anxiety disorders, and anxiety disorders then also have health disorders as well. There's a lot of illnesses that come as a result of anxiety. Everything from heart issues to, pain, fibromyalgia, and so on, because of depression and anxiety. So therefore, understanding what it is you are feeling, identify, doesn't mean you are complaining and you're not a Christian. No, I'm not saying complain and whine. I'm saying identify what you are feeling, right? And then the next step is then, what do I do about it? So journaling is so cathartic. Way to begin to, get your feelings out. When I work with my clients, occasionally they'll bring in their journals and read something they wrote or whatever it is, So journaling gets you to understand yourself and get it out there.
And is there a particular practice that you use when you journal? Do you journal with, certain prompts, or do you just kind of just write whatever is on your mind?
I tell people to write what's on their mind. Some people will write paragraphs. Some people will write, just a few points. And I know that, there's some people who do actual courses on different ways to journal. Sometimes you can just buy a journal with prompts. And the good thing is that there's so many of them available today.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. No, that is so powerful. I like that. I like what you said when you said that. I didn't want to stop you, but I thought that was just really, really powerful when you said that, bad feelings are not meant to stay inside of you.
Indeed. And the other thing I want to say is that pain, all right, serves a role in our lives. So and if I was sitting in this room with you, or I was sitting and you're looking at me, okay, and I didn't realize, and for ambience, I had a candle, an open flame right by my arm. And as I'm talking and moving my arms, I'm not recognizing that my arm has gotten dangerously close to the open flame. right? And I begin to feel pain because the thing is burning through my shirt into my arm. What is the first thing I'm going to do?
You're going to
I'm
move
going
away.
to check away, because typically the way the nervous system works, our brain will tell our arms and legs what to do, instruct the body. But in emergency situations, it bypasses the brain, and then straight away the arm will jerk, and then the head will say, "Ow, what is that? Oh my goodness, look. The candle bent and made a hole in my shirt. Wow, it's hurting me." And the truth is that the pain had a role to play. If we didn't feel the pain, I would leave my arm there, and then it will continue to burn my arm. I could get a very serious, burn.
More serious burn, yeah.
Hospitalization and so on. So the pain played a role. So you were asking earlier on, even your question about what about trauma and things. When do I seek help? Well, when you are feeling some kind of emotional pain, right? Pain, we try and squash it and ignore it. No, it's not a predictor. It is a signal. If you're feeling kind of pain, it is a signal. Deal with it.
I love that. Pain is not a predictor, it's a signal.
After all, what is it? Sometimes one session may bring a whole lot into perspective. Hopefully you'll do more than one session and get into it even more.
I love it. And do you see people outside the US? I'm just saying, in case someone listens to this and is like, you know what, I love her.
No, so I'm licensed in the state of Florida, and so I practice in the state of Florida. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit. Yes. Let's talk about your book. I see that little, your in the background. Reflections of a Hope Monger. I love the name first and foremost. It's amazing. So who is a Hope Monger? Let's start there before we even go into, the book and what led you to it.
Yeah. So a Hope Monger is a seller, right? So a fishmonger sells fish. So I guess a hope monger sells hope. A hope monger is a dealer in hope. And I actually went as far as to define a hope monger as somebody who encourages people, and by their story, they pass on hope to others. And in my research, I discovered that hope is, so many of us define hope in kind of layman's terms as maybe that positive expectation that something will happen. But the truth is that the full definition of hope, it is that, that belief and desire that tomorrow will be better than
today.
But and that I have a role to play in it. And the research on hope also shows that hope is also about setting goals. Hope is about having a vision and using imagination. Hope is about what strategies and pathways am I going to use to achieve that goal. And hope is about how do I keep myself motivated and encouraged.
I love
all of these 4 areas, the goals, the pathways, the motivation, the vision, are all part of hope. What is a hope monger? Will share stories and share information that will give vision and encouragement and strategies and pathways, so that the individuals can achieve that better tomorrow. So you are a hope monger. I'm a hope monger.
I love it. I am a hope monger. Thank you. I am. I like the fact that you describe hope as not being blind, because a lot of people think hope is blind. You just sit down, I am hopeful, and you don't do anything.
That's a wish. It's a great wish, but it's merely a wish.
Okay.
Now, the desire starts something in you. I truly, in fact, I have an essay in here where I talk about something I went through, and then my father just said to me one day, in fact, I write in the book, so I was going through it, and like any mature, confident woman, what I did was I called my daddy and began to cry. Like a baby,
How old were you?
40 something.
Like any mature woman would do. You cried.
And all he said was, again, like a man of few words, he quietly said, the worst is over. And I remember just taking that, and a part of me was like, how do you know the worst is over? How do you know? But then, let me just sit with that, and so yes, that the emotion and that, feeling, that thought, it began to work something in me, but then it began to give me the motivation I needed to then set new goals, to then reset my vision, to then try different strategies, right, for a better tomorrow. So a wish is great. The only thing is that it's incomplete. If I say to you, Tombra, I hope you have a great day, I just gave you a great wish, but it's not. Only you can hope and plan and have a vision and set goals to have a great day.
Love it. Love it. That is so powerful. So what led you to the point where you thought, you know what, I know everyone has a story, right? So you probably had a story that led you to that point, but it would be good to just kind of get some sort of synopsis, some sort of high level. Where did you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I am going to write a book called Reflections of a Monger? How did you get there?
Yeah, I started to, I think it started out as my journaling. I would journal something, and then I would post on Facebook, and there'd be so much, it would resonate so much with people. And I was like, oh, so my little stories and my lessons are resonating. Okay, so let me stop sharing them and take some time and finish writing more. And so that's what I did. So last year, people were like, you're not writing and sharing enough on Facebook.
You will buy it when it comes out.
And I was like, yeah, buy it. Wait. Buy the book. But it's called Reflections of a Hope Monger. All right. And I think the interesting thing about the book is that it is a series of short stories, and there's about 50 of them. And
50. Wow.
50, yeah, there's 50 short stories talking about everything from finding your purpose in life, my love for my family, and I also highlight some good things, interactions with my family that people can model from. But I also highlight, it's mostly about me, but I also highlight some situations of dysfunctional families, dysfunctional relationships. I talk about some tough stuff, I definitely know that Nigerians are more open than Ghanaians. And I'm not trying to be, to generalize, but we generally tend to keep secrets and things that look nice from the outside. But
Nigerians are like that too, but trust me.
I definitely shattered some notions, and I put out some vulnerable stories. And I have to admit, the most vulnerable story I put in there, I didn't do it at the beginning. I actually did my first draft, gave it to my husband, and I said, hey, what's this? And he read it.
It's like, it's incomplete.
It's good, but it's underwhelmed. He was underwhelmed. I'm like, why? He goes, you are coming across in the typical Ghanaian fashion as, it all looks nice. And so I wrote, there's one essay in there called The Tunnel. And actually The Tunnel is a story about how our marriage imploded. And he told me to write it, and he worked with me on it. And again, and I think at the time I was saying, you know what, I don't want to write about that because first of all, people will judge us, and I don't want to get caught up in salacious details. But I realized it was me that didn't want to be vulnerable and share my story. It's very beautifully written. It sets up enough that you know that there was something up, but then the rest of it is how we rebuilt, and that story is called The Tunnel.
Oh wow, that is
indeed, and even from the cover of the book, I think sets up the premise. So this bowl here is called a kintsugi bowl. Kintsugi, for those people who don't know, is a Japanese art form where they take a broken piece of pottery and they make a paste with gold or silver.
I love that.
And they take the paste and they use it to fill in the cracks. So the bowl becomes functional and whole again. However, it doesn't look as if it was never broken. You can.
It looks like it was. You can see that it was.
And my thing is that let's become whole again, but not put forward the image that we were perfect and never broken. Don't learn from that. And the book is that it doesn't matter what you've been through, what you've done, you can become a masterpiece. You can grow. You can become better and do better. And so the book is called Reflections of a Hope Monger because number one, they are reflections of my life. And number two, because they are stories and reflections. Every story engages you, and then there's lessons and wisdom nuggets. But then what I found to be most powerful, and I thank God for that every day, is that people read the stories and tell me, oh my goodness, I saw myself in this story. I saw myself.
Oh,
So you think you're reading about me, you're reading about
you're reading
yourself.
about yourself. You're reading about yourself.
And so this is about, you know what, you read it and then you go be a hope monger.
Mm.
God called you to be a hope monger. We should all be hope mongers. We should all spread encouragement. We should all help, you know, people find their vision and find their purpose. We should all, you know, as coaches for sure, and as therapists, help people with strategies so they can live abundantly and live well and rise up from childhood trauma and difficult relationships and mistakes of the past. We can all be our best. The world needs us more than
The
ever.
world needs us.
More than ever before, the world needs us.
The world needs us whole. I love that.
Yes.
Love that. And I know that you've got a podcast coming soon.
Yes, I do. I do have a podcast coming. I do. I'm not allowed to say you are the podcast grandmother.
Yeah, feel free. I am super excited.
Tonbra is my podcast grandmother. So just know, maybe, I don't know, I should have this like you Google Tonbra grandchild or something.
I'll be the youngest, most beautiful grandmother you've ever seen.
Exactly. And so the podcast, you know, is called Hope Mongers. And it's simply me having conversations with people from all walks of life to find, and not just what's on their resume, but to get between the lines and to find out about them and how they overcame. And again, my hope is that sharing these stories, there's a power in sharing stories, will create connections, will create aha moments for people, and will allow people to then go forth and be their best selves. So you and I are so similar in our what we love and what we want to do with ourselves.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, like, why not? You have to come on my podcast. Like, yes, you've got, like, literally.
It's so similar. It's so similar. Yes.
Very similar. It's been an absolutely enlightening session, entertaining, very engaging. It's been everything. Thank you so much for bringing your whole self and just spreading so much hope. I know that, you know, if you've taken nothing at all from this whole, hopefully you've taken more. See a therapist, because we all, you know, you've taken more.
Also, if you don't see a therapist, you're not beautiful, right? That was it.
If you don't see a therapist, you're not beautiful.
You're not beautiful.
So hopefully you've taken that away. But thank you very much. I'm just going to let you close us out. Just say whatever is on your heart, you know, for the people. Just close us out. Thank you so much for being here today, and then close us out.
All right. So listen, guys, it's been a wonderful, enlightening hour, and I just want to say to anybody who is feeling hopeless, please don't suffer in silence. There is no shame in talking about your mental health. Please know that you cannot achieve whole health without also looking at your mental health. So you know what? Go online, find a therapist, invest in at least one session. I guarantee you that you will find value in it and at least stay long enough. You know, if you're not your best selves, that soul is the middleman that connects our bodies to the Spirit of God and what God wants us to do in this world. If your emotions, are compromised, if you're, and then compromise your intellect, you cannot do what you were put on this earth to do. So let's not waste any more time. There is no shame. There is no shame to go to a doctor, to talk to somebody if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, if you find yourself sad, if you're seeing changes, if you're isolating, right? If you are sleeping too much or sleeping too little, if you are eating too much or eating too little, if you're unmotivated, if you're overwhelmed, don't just suffer in silence and assume it will pass. Talk to somebody. Invest in therapy. Do that. Get your inside healthy. And be your best self.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much. As you've said that, I know I said that was my last question. You said shame. First time you said it, I was like, there's somebody who's listening to that needs to hear about shame. I want you to speak about, just very quickly, just about shame. A lot of people who are listening to me may have had, experiences in their lives that they can't seem to just overcome, in the sense of every time they think about it, no matter how long ago it has been, they still feel a sense of shame around it. What would you say to such a person?
I think I would say, first of all, that guilt, shame is not our portion. Shame is not our portion. I think it starts with that mindset to just start right there. Shame is not your portion, right? If somebody did something to you that was wrong, that's on them. It doesn't change who you are. There's somebody saying once about a $20 bill maybe fell on the floor and maybe it was
crumbled.
Did it change the value of the $20 bill? It did not. So yeah, you've been through some stuff that rocked you up a bit. Does it change your value? It does not. You are made in the image and likeness of God.
Yes.
Secondly, I think it's really interesting. This thing called perfectionism has tentacles that reach far and wide, because truly we seek perfection because we don't have good self-esteem. We don't think that much of ourselves. So therefore, our value is in what we do. We need to understand that our value is in who we are. We are. Therefore, we are valuable. And therefore, if you make a mistake, it is a mistake. But the person with a perfectionist mindset says, I made a mistake, therefore I'm a mistake. And that's what brings the shame. You made a mistake, learn something new, pick yourself up, and start again. All right. The Bible says there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. So if you're in Christ Jesus, we're not taking that. If you allow shame, you're actually allowing the devil to do his best work in you. Please remember, if you don't remember anything, remember that, and at least decide that I'm not going to let shame. And the truth is that, listen, I'm a therapist, Tombra. I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't need to watch dramatic movies anymore, because I hear real life every day. And I'm saying that not even to be facetious, but only to say that there's nothing new under the sun. And perhaps it made it easier for me to be where I am because I hear so many stories. It's not about comparing, but it's about understanding that, listen, you made a mistake, you fell down, rise up, repent, be different.
And be kintsugi.
Amen. And be kintsugi and continue doing the job for which God placed you on this earth.
Love it. Love it. That was for somebody. You said shame the first time and then you said it again, and it was just coming in my head. Somebody needs to hear about shame from you. So thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you. Thank you for listening, guys.